Have you ever been in a situation where your team or your company, on paper, is just crushing it? I mean, hitting all its targets, growing, delivering. But on the inside, everything just feels harder? Well, that's the exact mystery we're going to crack open today with a really powerful framework called Viability Economics. It's a strange question, right? This is the central paradox. You're shipping product, the revenue is looking good, but there's this nagging feeling that the whole system is getting more and more brittle. That the day-to-day effort just to keep things moving is quietly, slowly spiraling out of control. Turns out that feeling, it's a critical warning sign. So, does any of this sound familiar to you? Simple decisions that used to be made by a team now suddenly have to go all the way up the chain. Or every time something goes a little bit wrong, a new rule or a new approval step gets bolted on. You try to fix one little thing over here, and for some reason, something totally unrelated breaks over there. And the crazy part is, everyone's working hard, everyone's making smart choices, and yet the whole system just feels fragile. These aren't signs that people are messing up. They're symptoms of a hidden structural stress building up under the surface. So why does this happen? To really get it, we need to dive into what this source material calls the successful system paradox. And this gets right to the heart of why we're so often blindsided by these kinds of problems. Okay, here's the first big clue. We're all trained to measure success by looking at the usual stuff, right? Output, growth, performance. But here's the catch. These are all lagging indicators. They only tell you what has already happened. It's kind of like trying to drive a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. It can only confirm you've crashed after you've already hit the wall. And this is the core of the paradox right here, because we're using these lagging signals like, hey, our output is stable, to tell ourselves that everything's fine. We actually end up ignoring the rising stress in the system. Our very focus on keeping up the appearance of success actively masks the early signs of decay. We're basically reassuring ourselves with the exact data that's hiding the real problem. So, if our usual metrics are basically a trap, what should we be measuring instead? This is where our investigation finds its most important clue. We need a new variable, a leading indicator of trouble. And that variable has a name: coordination friction. Now, this isn't about how hard the work itself is. No, it's about all the extra work you have to do just to get everyone rowing in the same direction when the path forward isn't perfectly clear. Just think of all those extra meetings, the constant escalations, the rework loops that happen, not because someone made a mistake, but just because of misalignment. That's friction. And what's so important to see here is how friction is different from other things we talk about. It's not the same as a transaction cost. It's definitely not the same as your team's workload. The crucial point is right there in that last row. Coordination friction can be going up and up and up, even while your output remains completely stable. It's like this invisible tax you're paying just to get things done. And this timeline just perfectly illustrates the single most important rule in this whole framework. Friction is the canary in the coal mine. It rises first. For a while, the system can soak it up and still look perfectly fine from the outside. That's time too. But eventually, that friction becomes too much to bear, and that's when performance finally starts to drop. If you wait until time 3 to do something, you're already way behind. Okay, so we've found our leading indicator, coordination friction. Awesome. But just knowing it exists isn't really enough, is it? We need a way to actually use it. We need a diagnostic toolkit to help us figure out what's causing all that friction in the first place. And that toolkit is Viability Economics. Now, it's really important to understand that this is not a crystal ball. It's not trying to predict the future. It's a diagnostic framework. Think of it more like a doctor's stethoscope. It's a tool designed to help you listen to the system's health right now so you can identify what's wrong and test your diagnosis. And to use this toolkit the right way, we have to be super clear about what it isn't. This is not about judging your company's culture or your team's good intentions. It's not going to tell you what your strategy should be. And it is definitely not some magic wand that guarantees success. Its purpose is way more focused than that. So what does it do? Well, first, it makes that rising friction visible long before performance tanks. Second, it helps you pinpoint the specific type of coordination failure that's happening. And third, and this is the really cool part, it gives you a disciplined, scientific way to test your explanations with small, safe-to-fail experiments. And it forces you to throw out bad ideas. So, what does this actually look like in the real world? How does a team use this framework to test a diagnosis? Let's walk through the process. It follows this simple 5-step cycle. First, you observe the friction, let's say more escalations. Then you state a clear diagnosis. We think this is an alignment failure. Next, you run a small, reversible experiment to test it. You make a clear prediction. If our diagnosis is right, this change will cause friction to go down. And finally, you verify. If friction didn't go down, well, then your diagnosis was wrong. You reject it, and you move on.
Now that last step, rejecting your own idea, that might sound like a failure, but in this framework, it's actually the most powerful move you can possibly make. And this brings us to a really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea.
Let's just sit with this quote for a second. Rejection is epistemically successful. What that really means is that proving a diagnosis is wrong is a form of progress. It's a victory for knowledge. You have successfully eliminated an incorrect explanation, which stops your organization from wasting time and money on the wrong solution, and it brings you one giant step closer to the real problem.
Let's make this real with a quick example from the source material. You've got an engineering organization seeing more and more escalations and delays, but their delivery volume is stable. So friction is up, but output is fine. Their first diagnosis is, hey, this must be an alignment failure.
So they run a small, targeted test. They don't reorganize the whole company or anything drastic. They just clarify who makes which decisions, but only in one single workflow. It's a safe, totally reversible change. And their prediction is, this should reduce the number of escalations.
So what happened? Well, the documentation got better, which is nice, I guess. But the core problem, all those escalations and delays, it didn't change one bit. The coordination friction did not decrease.
So when you put the predictions side by side with the actual outcome, the verdict is crystal clear. It's totally unambiguous. The diagnosis of alignment failure is rejected. There's no room for debate, no room for excuses. The test failed, and that means the diagnosis was wrong, period. And this is the win. The team now knows, with hard evidence, that simply clarifying decision rights isn't the answer. They can stop wasting energy on that idea and start looking for other potential root causes. The real value wasn't in being right, it was in cleanly and quickly proving an idea wrong so they could move on to a better one.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to take away. As you look at your own teams, your own organizations, don't just look at the shiny metrics of success. Ask yourself this: is all that success masking a hidden rising friction? And if it is, do you have a way to see it before it's too late?